Please, I know you're all muted. Please, can you all clap for Tom Ziglar? Welcome, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Oh, an absolute pleasure. So just tell us how you actually developed your passion for the business and when you actually started in the business.
Let's see. I started right after college. I thought I was going to be a professional golfer. And so I got a job in the warehouse at the company, packing boxes and moving stuff around to support my golf habit. Then I realized golf wasn't going to be it. Those guys are really good out there, and moved into sales. And then this is where my passion started. I was probably 25, 26 years old, and I went to an Amway event. Dad was the keynote speaker. Anybody ever been to a big giant Amway event? Maybe back in the day? Yeah. So Dad was the keynote speaker, and there was about 30,000 people at this event. It was a big basketball arena, and they broke for 5 o'clock, and they sent everybody out to go eat dinner, and then everybody came back in at 7, and Dad was the surprise guest. And so what that meant is between 5 and 7, we set up our product tables. So this was my job. I was selling the books and the cassette tapes and the VHS and all the programs. And we set up about 15 tables of this material, and we had to put tablecloths on top of it because Dad was a surprise. They didn't want anybody to see that he was there. So at 7 o'clock sharp, they open the doors and thousands of people rush in. And the first person through the door, he looks over at the table, and the tablecloth was pulled to the side, and he saw a picture of Dad. So he comes over to me and he says, "Is Zig Ziglar going to be here?" And I said, "Yeah, but don't tell anybody." And I covered it up real quick. He said, "Is he going to autograph?" And I said, "Yeah, he's going to autograph." He goes, "Where's the line?" And I go, "Well, there's a table down there where he's going to sit, but he doesn't speak until 12 o'clock midnight. And it's an Amway event, so it's going to run at least an hour, hour and a half late." So I said, "Why don't you go take your seat, and then when he comes onto stage, you can come back here and get in line that nobody knows existed." So he gets in line anyway. So here's a guy waiting in a line that nobody knows exists. And I think to myself, he's not going to last. I mean, it's 6 hours at least. About an hour and a half later, he's in line. I go and I talk to him and I say, "What's your story?" And this is what he tells me. He was from Central America. He'd immigrated up. He went to live with his brother in Chicago. And he told his brother after being there for 3 weeks, he said, "If I'm going to live in America, I need to learn how to speak English. How do I learn how to speak English?" And this man looks at me in broken English and he says, "My brother gave me a book, and the book was called See You at the Top. And my brother said, if you translate, get your Spanish to English dictionary, if you translate See at the Top into Spanish and then back into English, not only will you learn English, but it will change your life." And then this man starts crying right there. Mm. And he says, "That book saved my marriage." He said, "I was an alcoholic. My wife was about to leave me. It totally changed my life. So now I'm living the dream. I've got a business and my wife is with me. My kids are here in America." And that's the first time that I personally realized the business that we were in. And that's like in the core, that's in the DNA. We're not in the book and tape business. We're in the life-changing business. And that's just it's an honor and it's a privilege to carry on what Dad has created and to go out and meet the challenges that we see today.
Yeah, amazing. So what year was it that you came into the business?
So let's see, I've been in 33 years ago. So do the math, 87.
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, I tell people I've actually been in the business 55 years because I was born into it.
Oh, indeed. That must have been having your father as a mentor, you must have learned so much from him.
I tell people, they ask that question, what was it like being his son? Of course, I don't know any difference. But I will tell you this, as good as he was on stage, he was even better off stage.
I bet.
Just an amazing person, he was an introvert at the house. So he was quiet, he had his notepad, he was always reading and studying, but when it was family time, he was 100% all in. And what he told me and my sisters, I have 3 older sisters, he said, whatever you want to do, I'll support you as long as you do it with 100% integrity and 100% effort. And that's about as good as it gets.
It's incredible. And I think, when you said you started in the warehouse, then you went into sales, then you went to leadership. And then when was it when you took over as CEO?
That was about 25 years ago.
Right.
So, yeah. So, certainly super qualified at the old age of 30.
Wow. Incredible. And what's been one of the biggest highlights of your career, Tom?
Oh, wow. There's a number of them. There's 2 things that I'm exceptionally proud of professionally. About 6 years ago, we started our Ziglar Legacy certification. And this is where we certify people to teach our courses. And we now have over 300 certified speakers and trainers around the world in 23 countries. And then last year, we took an online course called Choose to Win, and now we have about 100 coaches that are doing the Choose to Win coaching all over. So, and the reason I'm proud of those is it's to me, it represents legacy.
Yes.
I get it. If you learn something and you send me an email and say, hey, I took what you said and I did this and I accomplished this, I'll give you a high five. But if you say, hey, I took something from Ziglar and then I taught it to somebody else and it changed their life, that's what gets my heart going.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the biggest principles that when I came into this industry 11 years ago, and we learned this from one of our business mentor, Shannon Lecter, is the more you give to people, the more you'll get back. And it's so true that the more you help and support and help those people to get where they want to get, the gratification that we get from it, and seeing people's, and you change people's lives, and it's some of the things that we do, it's life changing, and it's true what you say. You can change people's lives and their families and their careers and their whole culture. It's so important, and that's one of our biggest beliefs, and one of your biggest beliefs and principles is that saying, that motto is that the more you help, the more you get back, and it's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my good friends, his name is Rabbi Daniel Lapin, just an incredible human being, and he has a quote or a saying, and he says this: if we solve a problem, so we're, in business, we ask people, we work with a lot of business owners, and we start by saying, what problem do you solve? Right? Because that's what it is. So Rabbi Lapin says, if you solve a problem, you're often rewarded with a certificate of appreciation. We call that money.
Yeah.
The more problems you solve, the more certificates of appreciation you get.
Absolutely.
Now, this is the tie down for me. So I love this. And this is coming from a rabbi. And he said this. He said, God is never happier with his children than when they're solving the problems of his other children.
Mm.
And so as a business owner myself, and looking at everything that's going on in the world, we either see problems or we see possibilities. And right now, from a military language would say, with all the problems we have, it's a target-rich environment. There are problems everywhere. And one of the mindsets that I'm really focused on and what we teach is you need to look at the relationships, the customers, the clients, your community, and really dig into what problems are they now facing that are unique and different than they were just a few months ago, and figure out how you can help them solve them.
Yeah.
And that's when we serve the best.
And that's funny enough. That's probably one of the biggest tips that Sharon Lecter taught us, wasn't it? You know, business is about two things. You either solve someone's problem or you serve their need, which obviously is the same thing. And, you know, that's been massive for us, hasn't it?
100%. And, you know, you learn, you know, I think that's one of our biggest principles in our careers, is learning from the greats and learning from all the experts. And, you know, once you surround yourself with those people and learn from those people, you pass on that knowledge to other people and to other business entrepreneurs, and they share that to other people. So it's like a knock-on effect. It's a spiral effect, and it's a ripple effect, we call it.
Yeah.
You know, and
shush. Sorry, we got 3 noisy dogs. Shush now. Shush.
So yeah. What was I was going to ask you is what's one of the biggest, best piece of advice you received, Tom?
Oh, wow. So many of them. I'll give you 2 pieces of advice. One of them, and I'm just curious, if you've ever made like a colossal business mistake, just raise your hand. I think I can see. Okay, so we're in good company, right? So back in 1999, 2000, I'd been the president for 3 years at the time. I came up with this great, brilliant business idea and shared it with Dad. Dad was 100% behind it. It was something that he wanted to do, and I knew that. I did all this research. I spent a lot of money getting with the experts. And I talk about it in the book, Choose to Win, by the way. I'm not going to tell the whole story. But what I'll tell you is we started a new business and it didn't work. And had to shut it down within a year. And I was $2.5 million in debt.
Whew.
And so I went to bed every night for at least a year, a little bit longer, thinking, you know what, my dad, his whole life was about building his reputation, and I've ruined it overnight.
Oh.
So that's what I thought. Of course, Dad never thought that. Anybody ever have a thought about yourself like you've just screwed it up? So I'm at the office, and you know, I don't know. Do y'all remember the Nokia flip phone? It was like Nokia dominated. And Nokia. Do you remember the ringtone on a Nokia flip phone? Okay, my stomach turns when I hear that, okay? Because for 1 year, every time I heard that Nokia ring, that was somebody calling me to ask me for money that we owed them. Anybody ever been there?
Yep. All of us.
So I was getting to the office at 7 and I was leaving at 6, and I was basically closing the door all day long, just handling everything I could. And now I talk to everybody, right? I talked to everybody we owed. I talked to all the situation, and I did everything I could. And we started paying that off. And I'm driving home, and my friend and mentor, he's just still to this day. I'm driving home, and I pick up the phone, and he says, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Not so good." Anybody ever had that call? Were your friends?
Yeah.
And he said, well, let me ask you a question. What'd you do today? And I told him. And he said, well, did you take every call? And I said, yeah. He said, did you tell him the truth? I said, yeah. He said, did you do everything you could? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, guess what? You need to leave this in the car. And when you walk in, you go have a great night because God's happy. And that was a turning point for me. You know, sometimes either by circumstances beyond our control or just a bad business decision, which was what this was, we find ourselves in a difficult situation. And from that point on, it's then about the little choices that we make, right? And so that's how we dug out, is we made a bunch of good little choices, and then God intervened and some great things happened. But that was an advice in a crisis. Okay, that to me. So that was, you know what, no matter where you are in life, no matter how tough it is, you take it one day at a time, and you do the next right thing.
Absolutely.
So
and we all make mistakes.
Yeah. The other piece of advice is really a story that Dad tells, and I want to share it because a lot of people say, well, how did Zig Ziglar become the speaker that he is? So I want you to go back in time 60 years ago. And he's just starting. He's not getting paid yet. And he's driving 3 hours one way to speak for free. He likes to get there early, so he's driving out there. He gets to the community, and he can't find the place. And so he has the address. He goes into a little store, and he says, can you give me directions? I'm trying to go here. And he points the address. So the man at the store had his name on. He was local. He says, oh, yeah, I know where that is. And Dad said, write down the directions turn by turn. So he did. He wrote them down. So Dad goes and gets in the car, and he follows the directions step by step. And an hour later, he's 30 miles further away. And so here's the question for everybody here. Was it Dad's fault he got the wrong directions? No, a well-meaning authority expert gave him directions, and he took it. And so this is what I tell people every day. Maybe you're not where you are in life because you were given the wrong directions, right? And when you coach people, when you talk to people, they're suffering from a bad case of the wrong directions. Now, here's the reality. So think of Zig Ziglar in the road all those years ago. There's two scenes that could have happened. There's one that did, one that didn't. He could have sat on the side of the road and he could have said, oh no, I'm an up and coming wannabe speaker. My reputation is ruined. These were the people who were going to give me the break. Now they think I'm not dependable. They can't rely on me. Woe is me. I'm just going to go home. My dream is over. Okay. He could have made that choice, right?
Yep.
Or he did what he did, which is, I got the wrong directions. I need to go get the right directions. So he went, he got the right directions. He went there as fast as he could. And now you know about Zig Ziglar. And so here's the reality. We need to forgive ourselves for wrong directions that may not be our fault. A teacher, a mentor, a parent, maybe the first boss we work for, somebody who had good intentions but didn't know any better, gave us wrong directions. We end up in a place we don't really like. Well, once we know that, then it's our ownership, our responsibility to go find the right directions. And so that's it. I've been on a quest for the right directions. And the sooner I figure out I'm going the wrong way, the quicker I can turn into the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I always brought my children up to say the bigger the failure, the bigger the learn. And it's how you deal with things. And, we all have ups and downs in our business. But you've always taught me as well, and Paul's always said, you get up. If you fall over, you get back up, fighting harder, stronger. Because we all have ups and downs, and life is not a bed of roses, and it's how you deal with it, and it's the mindset that you have, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer of your paths are made out. The law of attraction. You can turn left one day or turn right, and if you hadn't turned that way, you wouldn't have met that person. I'm always a firm believer of that, and the law of attraction, I think, is a huge part of our life. And I believe that if you visualize things that you see yourself at a certain place, or you want to achieve or reach that goal, you visualize when you're there. And that's the dream that you want to try and get there. And one day that dream will come true if you keep believing in it. And I'm a firm believer of that. You make your own dreams, make things happen for you, and never stop dreaming, because, everything that we wish for, touch wood, has come forward, and those paths have come to us. But I think a lot of it's down to is the circle of trust of people who you work with that make those things happen. There's a quick way or the long way. The quick way is the circle of people who can help you. And just one question I was going to ask you as well, Tom, is how important do you think the power of networking has been to you, to yourself in your career?
I've got a good friend. His name is Bob Bodine, and he wrote the book called The Power of Who. And what he teaches and what I believe is you already know everybody you need to know in order to make any dream or any goal come true. Right? I mean, think about it. Way back 2,000 years ago, I mean, Jesus had, one best friend, 3 good friends, 9 other friends, and one of those wasn't so good, was it? That's a network. They changed the world. In fact, they're still doing deals today. I mean, that idea of we know everybody we need to know. Why is that? Because your friends, your network, if I got 12 close friends that I do life with, each one of my friends has 12 close friends. And who does that put me in touch with? Here's another learning point. One of my mentors is Bob Teedy. And Bob and I were having breakfast last year, and he said, Bob said, how are you doing? I said, man, I'm overwhelmed. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, and I don't know if anybody's ever felt this way. I said, look, I've got so much to do. I'm burning it on both ends, and somebody will bring me a good idea, and my shoulders will literally slump. He goes, why do they slump? And I go, because I know it's a good idea, but I have no ability to take action on it. Anybody ever felt that way? It's like,
yeah.
So he calls me Brother Tom. He goes, Brother Tom, you're asking yourself the wrong question. You're asking yourself, how do you do this, right? How do I do that? He said, Tom, that's the wrong question. He said, the right question is, who should do that? And that changed my paradigm, because you know what? I believe in most cases, we're facilitators. We're connectors. We are given opportunities, not necessarily because we do every opportunity, but because we've got close friends and a network of people who are perfectly suited for that. And so that was a turning point for me. Now, when a good idea comes in, I don't bear the brunt of the weight of, wow, I've got to now take action on it. I sit back and I pray a little bit and I say, God, who's the best one for this? How can if this is a really good idea, who's best to do it? So I'll go back to a Rabbi Daniel Lapin quote again. He says this: opportunity seeks out the generous. Opportunity seeks out the generous. And the lesson behind that is this: if somebody brings you a fantastic opportunity, one of your best friends, and they come to you because they trust you, and they say, hey, Tracy, I know it's your birthday. I've got this amazing opportunity. Can you help me with it? And then they share it with you, and you look at them and you love them. They're your friend, but it's not your skill set, right? It's not what, you're not qualified. And so you look at them and you say, oh, thank you for thinking of me. I would love to help you, but this isn't something I can do. And then your friend says, who do you recommend that I go see?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to your mind is, I'm going to recommend the greediest, most self-interested person I can think of. No, that's not who you're going to recommend. You're going to recommend, first off, this is your close friend, somebody you trust, somebody who's going to be generous to your friend who is also qualified in that area. And so that's how opportunity seeks out the generous. That's how that works. Yeah. And so when you think of networking and you think of serve and you think of problem solving and you think of generosity, that's how those things all weave together.
Yeah. And I think trust is a massive thing. And I've just I was writing one of my chapters of my book number 2, because I'm working on that at the moment. And trust is huge, because as you just said, you're not going to recommend somebody. I always have the belief that I'll only do business with someone if they're good enough to take home to my parents for dinner. That's how I judge people. And I think if they're good enough for that, they're good enough to do business with. But once you start building the trust, that's when, you can, it's really, really powerful then, isn't it?
Here's a sequence, just to let everybody know. I love research, and I'm kind of, maybe some people would call me a nerd, which is okay. You want to call me that, that's fine. I really like to know the why behind the why. And so I was listening to a TED Talk and Robert Waldinger, and it was about the 75-year Harvard grant study. Has anybody heard of that? If you've heard of the 75-year Harvard grant study, no hands going.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Dan says he knows it. But basically what they did is, now it's about 80 years ago, they took the sophomore class at Harvard, which was all men, and then they took an equal number of young men from the Boston tenement housing projects, and they did a lifelong study. And they followed these almost a little over 700 for their whole lives. And they did medical exams and personality profiles, and they interviewed their family. They interviewed people that they worked in business and everything, and they did a whole life thing. And so at the 75th anniversary, they had literally hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. About 10% of that group was still alive, right? Because it's 75 years. That means they're in their 90s. So they went to the 10% and they asked them, are you happy and satisfied with your life? And everybody who said yes, they went back to the paperwork from 20 years earlier. And they looked at what their focus was, because they asked them, or actually it was 30 years earlier when they were in their 60s, what's your focus? They all had the same focus. Their number one priority was relationships. Okay, so if you want to be in your 90s happy and satisfied in your life, then you need to have the right kind of relationships. So here's the sequence. Can you have a good relationship without trust? It's impossible.
No.
So where does trust come from? Trust is the byproduct of integrity.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is integrity? Integrity is, it can't contradict it. You walk it out. So where does integrity come from? Just curious, where do you think integrity comes from?
It comes from your heart.
It's belief, isn't it?
It comes from truth.
Yeah.
Truth cannot contradict itself. So think about this. Where does truth come from? So for me, it's the author of truth, right? And so now, flashback in my life, I'm in my 20s and I'm in a Sunday school class with my dad.
No.
And so he asked the class every week these three questions. How many of you had a good week this week? Well, everybody would raise their hand, right? Because it's called the Encouragers class. That was the name of it. You kind of had to raise your hand, right? And then he said, how many of you read the Bible every day? And about 30% would raise their hands, because people still told the truth in church back then. And then he would ask the big question, which is, how many of you practiced good biblical self-talk this week? So biblical self-talk just means that you take a scripture and you put it in the first person present tense, like you claim it as yours, okay? So here's a question. What's the most powerful story in the world? What is the most powerful story in the world?
Your story?
It's the story you tell yourself. So imagine this. The story you tell yourself is God's truth, which creates integrity, which allows you to build trust, which creates the relationships that you want to have so that you're happy and satisfied in your 90s. And so that's the key. And that's the challenge with our world, is we tell ourselves lies, right? We don't tell ourselves God's truth. We don't, and when we change that story, when we change that input, it changes the whole course and direction of our life.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Are we going to ask the audience?
One more question. Your book, Choose to Win, is based on the concept that success is a choice. Could you elaborate on that, Tom?
Yes.
Book here.
Yes, absolutely. So the cover says you can transform your life one simple choice at a time. So about 5 years ago, I was speaking in Australia, and I was doing a full day workshop there. And I love questions. So right before the break, I took questions, and this man raised his hand, and he said, Tom, what is the fastest way to success? And I, you know what, been in the business at that point for 50 years. I was 50 years old, born into it. I'd never heard that question. Most of the time people will say, hey, what do successful people do? Or what are the keys to success? Or, you know, that kind of, this guy cut to the chase. What's the fastest way to success? Don't y'all like that? I mean, what a great question. I mean, yeah. And so I got the deer in the headlights look, you know, and then just out of my mouth, I said, the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits. And then when we went to break, well, we came back from break. My friend, Steve McKnight, who was having me speak to his group, he said, everybody get your pen out. Did you hear what Tom said? He said, the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits.
Yeah.
And so in a nutshell, that's what the book is about. And so we take the wheel of life. There's 7 areas: mental, spiritual, physical, family, financial, personal, and career. And we dive in and we say, okay, what are the bad habits that you have in each one of those areas? And what if you got rid of one little bitty bad habit and replaced it with one little bitty good habit every week? And you kept doing it. How different would your life be at the end of the year? And we know this for certain, that when it comes to success, it's usually the holes we dig and the baggage we carry that limits our elevation more than the new things that we put in place. And so the bad habit is letting go of the things that are holding us down. I was talking to a business owner, or they were a wannabe business owner. They had a job, right? They had the handcuffs, and they were working for somebody else, not really happy about it. And I said, well, what's your plan? And they said, well, I'm going to start working every evening a couple hours on my new business, and you know, maybe half a day on the weekend. And in 6 months, I think I'll have enough clients to go full-time independent. Well, 3 months later, I talked to him and I said, how's it going? And he said, well, I really haven't started yet. And I said, why? And he said, well, I get home from work, I'm exhausted. I mean, I work 9 hours every day. I'm just worn out. Well, what do you do when you get home? I asked. He said, well, I have like 5 bags of chips. I learned he was like 150 pounds overweight.
Oh, wow.
And so the point is the bad habit of eating the chips was keeping him from his dream. And so we've all got to start with where we are, right? So we look at our dream and what we want to accomplish, who we want to become, and we just look at the things that are keeping us from getting there, and we just slowly move away from that.
It's a bit like the compound effect, isn't it? You know, you do something, and even if you change 10% of something and you keep repeating it, it will just keep building momentum.
That's right. It's a great book. Darren Hardy, that's a great concept. Yeah,
amazing. One of my faves.
Yeah, brilliant. So should we go over to the audience now?
Yes, I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to call on Sue Worrell. I know Sue has been one of the first ones in the chat bar. So Sue, over to you.
Oh,
it needs to
I'm off mute. I'm still on mute.
Is she still on mute?
Yeah.
Sue, you ready?
I've unmuted you.
Oh, now you're back on mute. There you go.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, great to meet you, Tom. Some brilliant advice already. And yes, the courses I deliver, which are whole lifestyle courses, nutrition and mindfulness and exercise and sleep, etc. They're all about changing good habits from bad habits. And yeah, it definitely works. And in this lockdown, and a lot of it is the great contacts with Introbiz, is I've been able to turn, a great number of lives around, and it's been extremely rewarding. the other opportunity I had is help quite a to hold out a hand and say, look, I'd like to work with you, I can help you. But I've come across a few times where they're so skeptical, they think there must be a catch in this. And it takes time to win them around. Have you got any tips when you come across this, when you hold your hands out and try to help someone and it terrifies them and they immediately want to back off? They think taking their money or trying to make them do something they don't want to do.
Right. And so, yeah, you're breaking up. So the question is, how do you get somebody from being so skeptical? Is that the question?
We lost Sue. I think she's frozen a bit.
Yeah.
I think that was the question. Yes, Tom.
Yeah. So I'll tell a story. Whenever I fly, I'll give away to the flight crew, I'll give away a little book of big quotes to each person on the flight crew. And I'll put a $5 Starbucks card in each one. Okay.
Oh, nice.
And so when I get on the plane, I was flying back from Dublin. I was over on a UK Dublin trip and flew back from Dublin. And I get on the plane, and you know the international flights, they have a bigger crew. So I think this crew was about 12. So I have everything, and I give these away. And the way I do it is I get on, because my goal is to change the atmosphere. Okay. And every flight I'm on, I want to have the best atmosphere as possible. And so it's up to me. And so I get on, and as I walk on, the first two flight attendants, there's usually two greeting you. I'll ask them, I'll say, are you guys having a good day? And they'll usually say, yeah. And then I'll say, well, I have a serious question. And now the concern comes over their face, right? Because here's a passenger who's already got an issue, and we haven't even taken off yet. And then I say, do you like Starbucks? And they think it's a trick question, but they'll usually say, yeah, we like Starbucks. And so I give them those two right there, the book and the Starbucks card. And then I say, how many pilots on this flight? It's either 2 or 3. So I give them some extra, hey, take this to the flight crew. How many more people on the plane? So I put my bags down, and I work my way to the back, and I'm giving this to all the flight crew. And it's amazing what happens. The atmosphere completely changes. I'm not trying to get free stuff, but I'm just telling you, they give you free stuff. I was upgraded on an international flight doing this. That wasn't my intention, but it happened. So on this flight back from Dublin, I go to the back of the plane, and there's the last flight attendant. She's in the rear of the plane. And I say, hey, I have something for you. Do you like Starbucks? And she goes, no, not really. And I go, oh, okay, well, I have a free Starbucks card and a quote book for you. Would you like it? And she goes, no, I don't want it. And I go, that's okay. You can give it to somebody else. Do you know anybody who likes Starbucks? And she says, nope. And she cuts me off. So, right? So this is a skeptical person. Well, these two other flight attendants, they watched this, okay? And they were the ones who got all excited about it. So it's an overnight flight. And at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the galley getting some hot tea. And the two flight attendants come to me who had watched this, and we're all alone. And they say, hey, we noticed that our associate kind of turned you down a little bit rudely. Does that bother you? And I said, absolutely not. And they said, well, why not? And I said, it has nothing to do with me. I can almost guarantee you that somebody in that person's life violated her trust. And she's put up a wall that says, I'm never letting anybody in again. And then we had a motivational seminar for the next 2 hours at 35,000 feet on the way back. But here's the point. When somebody's that skeptical, my immediate response, I've trained myself, because it's not natural. I've trained myself to say, oh my, something's happened in their life. right? It's just like when I get attacked. Has anybody here ever been attacked for no reason?
Yeah.
If you're on social media, welcome to the club, right?
Mm.
So here's the reality. Would a secure person do that? No, a secure person would not. And so when I understand that somebody's insecure, it changes my whole body language, my whole countenance, my response, everything towards them. So the first thing in dealing with somebody who's skeptical is I immediately go to the point, oh my, there's a story here. They've been hurt. There's something going on. And so I just back off and I say, hey, I completely understand. And almost always I'm given an opportunity, in a flight, it doesn't really happen, but usually in other parts, it comes up. And so I don't go overboard trying to win them. I just understand. And I say, hey, look, I get it 100%. I've been doing this a long time and it's a long road. So whatever you need, just let me know. I'm just here to help. And I kind of back off. If they come to me and then say, gosh, I really need your help. They're coming to me for nutrition or wellness or sleep or whatever, what you do. And they're saying, I really need your help. And you say something like, well, between exercise, nutrition, and sleep is the most important, right? It's the lever of everything. And they're like, oh, that's too good to be true, right? That's not, it's got to be something else. Just say, hey, I agree with them. I'm like, hey, I thought the same thing myself until I looked at the research. I could share some of that with you, but I've figured out a lot of wrong ways to do it. I just want to save you the pain.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of the nerd in me coming at them from that direction. But I agree with them. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought too. But I did the research.
Right.
That's a little disarming. But those are the two things. Number one is something's happened to them. They've been hurt. And number two is, hey, I thought that way too. But my results, I'd been given the wrong directions and I wasn't getting results. And that's what I help people do, is get results in the fastest way possible. So if you want, I'm happy to go over the research with you.
Mm.
Yeah. So being empathetic, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't take it personally.
Sure. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Yes.
All right, Sue.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sue. If you can just mute yourself. And Jess and Joe over in South Africa, I think you have a question. If you'd like to unmute yourself, that would be awesome. Thank you. And if anybody else would like to ask a question, please pop it in the chat bar.
Can you hear us?
Yes?
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. Tom, first of all, it's a pleasure to virtually meet you, and thank you very much for coming on board. We're really inspired by all your knowledge, and especially the way you deliver it is really, really inspiring. Yeah. Our big question is, Jess and myself are both in about our mid-20s. And so our question that we want to ask you is, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone, well, to yourself if you're back in your mid-20s? And well, why is that?
Okay, so I'm gonna share with you two things. Well, probably more than two, but if I were to go back in my 20s, this is what I would do. The number one lesson that I learned from my father was we need to choose the right input into our mind. I have a quote and it says, what you feed your mind determines your appetite.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I would envision who you want to become, what you want to do. And then I would intentionally seek out the right input that helps you become the person that automatically does that. So there's a little quote that I like. It says this: a tree's fruitfulness is determined by its rootfulness. So you can actually draw a picture of the fruit that you want as the fruit of your life. Okay?
Yeah.
It can be reputation. My tree has dollar signs on it. I'd like to have some prosperity, right? I'm going to have relationships. So that's the fruit, okay? Now I want you to think of 7 roots to your tree. And this is what we teach at Ziglar. The mental, which is our thinking, our thought process, our mindset. The second root is spiritual. This is our character, our integrity, our faith, all of the character qualities that we have. The third root is physical, right? For me, physical is our energy, it's our sleep, it's our movement, it's our nutrition, it's our stress, it's those things. The fourth root is family. The fifth root is financial, right? And this is our stewardship aspect of financial. What are we going to do with the money we have? Yeah. The sixth root is personal. This is the things that we love to do. This is the uniqueness that we have. These are the activities that we do that give us energy. Like for me, I love being in the woods, right? The nature gives me energy. I like being alone. And the last root is career, but I call it our economic engine. So it could be you could work for someone, you could have your own business, you could be an investor, you could be a teacher, it doesn't matter. That's your career. So a tree's fruitfulness depends on its rootfulness. So those are the 7 roots that you've got to feed. And you get to pick the habits that feed those roots.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would, in your 20, in any age, but pick the habits that feed those roots. And the most important habit is the input around it.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. It makes complete sense. We recorded it, so we'll be looking back.
Well,
taking notes.
Matt Saltis, is Matt Saltis online? You want to ask Tom a question?
If you want to unmute.
Cheers, Paul and Tracy. Hi, Tom. It's awesome to hear from you today, and some great insights shared. I was actually very fortunate to meet you back in 2018 at your event with Kevin Harrington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in Clearwater. You may vaguely remember me. So really good to reconnect finally. My question for this evening, Tom, was around core values, and especially in this current climate and what's going on with the world around us clearly changing quite dramatically. How important do you feel core values are right now for entrepreneurs in guiding us through these times? And what are some of the key traits maybe that you would pick out in someone who's looking to be resilient in these times?
Oh, now that's $1 million question right there. So let me just say this. I have to answer this from a position of faith, okay? And let me explain why. The world, this is me, okay? So I'm just talking personally. When I look out at the world and I see the problems that we have, this is what I believe. We have a PP problem, which is a pride and a power problem, okay? And so when I talk about a solution to the challenges we have, the first question that I need to ask if I'm, working with somebody is, hey, do you believe in a creator? In other words, do you believe in moral law? Okay. And so what I need to know is, do you believe that a moral lawgiver gave us moral law? And here's why. If you believe that, then that means that we both must be humble and subject to the moral lawgiver. And that gives us each a burden of responsibility, which is a higher standard than we have. If you don't believe in a moral lawgiver, then it usually gets to be the person who has the power gets to decide. And that's just not, that's not right. Right? We, as all human beings, right, regardless of where you come from, faith background, whatever. If there's a moral lawgiver, then that means if I believe that, I've got to be humble to that. And so what happens is people, the tendency of people is my pride says, I'm right, you're wrong. Anybody heard that on social media lately?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So that's where I start from. And then if you are a believer, then the question I ask is, do you want to become the person God created you to become? And so for me, it's kind of irrelevant what the world says is right or wrong, because I'm believing in a moral lawgiver and a higher standard. And that's what I'm holding myself to. And I'll give you an example. For whatever reason, tolerance has become the preeminent virtue around the world. We should all tolerate. And Dad was not a fan, and I'm not a fan of tolerance. Okay? And let me explain why. Tolerance is a cop-out. Here's what I mean. You're in a relationship in a community of friends, and somebody's about to make a really bad decision. They're driving their car off the side of a cliff. Tolerance means you wave at them while they go by. Love, on the other hand, means you risk the relationship and you say, wait a second, I've been down that road. It hurts. So there's risk in love. And so to me, the answer is really simple. Ask yourself this question. Do you want your kids to tolerate you, or do you want your kids to love you? We all want love. And so when I'm speaking at a big conference, okay, and there's a lot of places where you can't talk religion, you can't talk politics, okay? So when I'm in a room of a mixed group, I'll just say this. I'll say, let me tell you where I come down. I'm not a fan of tolerance, but I am a fan of love. So let me ask you a question. Whether you're liberal or conservative, whether you're educated or uneducated, whether you believe in God or you don't, or whatever lifestyle you live, is it okay if I just love you? And you know what happens? Everybody's like, yeah, I'd like some love. And so here's the thing. I love so many people, and guess what? We don't agree on everything. Can you love somebody and not agree on everything?
Yep.
100%. And so, Matt, this is what I teach our business owners when they go out from a value perspective. I say this. We go out and we set the highest standard and we have the deepest grace. Okay? So why do we set the highest standard? If I want to have a profitable business and I have no standards, do I have any chance of being profitable? No. But the higher I set my standard and the more I grow and train to that, the better chance I have of being profitable and of bringing families and everybody with me. But here's the challenge today. We need to lead with the deepest grace. Because when we lead with grace and we prove that, then people might pay attention to the standard that we set. And so there's a story in the New Testament, and probably a lot of you will remember it. You know, Jesus is there, and they bring in the woman who was caught in the act of adultery. And the religious leader was trying to trap Jesus and said to Jesus, she's trapped in adultery. The law says we should stone her. What do you say? Y'all remember the scene? So Jesus writes something in the dirt, and then he looks up and he says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And one by one, they left. And then he said to her, "No one condemns you, and neither do I. Now go and sin no more." And so basically what he did is he extended the grace, but he didn't change the standard, right? And so what's the standard? It's integrity. It is service. It is love. It is all the character qualities. But people are fallen. People make mistakes. I mean, that's just who we are. And so the more grace I can extend to them in the process, the better chance we have of moving to that next level. So I don't know if I didn't mean to give a mini sermon, but to me, that's where it starts, because ultimately, if it's not about love, if it's not about truth, if it's not about integrity, if it's not about the highest standard, and if it's not about understanding, I don't get to decide what values are important or not. That's over my pay grade. I've just got to be submitted to them.
That's great. Thanks, Tom. It's a powerful reminder. It's on point. Really good.
Well done, Matt. Well done, Tom.
Fantastic. I can't believe it's 9 o'clock.
I know. Listen, we've got one more question. Dan Stanley from Better Men. Is he online?
Oh, he said that he actually was going to ask a question, but it was answered.
Right, okay.
So does anyone want to ask one last question? Because we appreciate Tom is very busy and his time is valuable. If anybody's got a quick question, please unmute yourself now. If not, I have one last one, if that's okay.
You bet.
Okay, cool. The last question I would just like to ask you is, we've obviously talked about the problems and the mistakes that we've made in our businesses, and you've shared some of those. So thank you for that. I always like to end on a positive. What would you say is your biggest highlight of your career to date?
Wow.
You probably have many, but have you got one in particular?
Memorable one.
I tell you what I think it is, and it's happening right now, is we wrote, I mentioned wrote the book, and that was great. But we decided to turn it into a coaching program. And we've already had, over 100 coaches in another program. And so there were two questions, and this is, this seems like common sense, right? But common sense doesn't always sink in as fast as it should. Oh. And we kept hearing from people, hey, I really would like to do it online, because everything we've ever done is in the classroom this way.
Yeah.
And then they kept saying, we need support. I'm brand new. I need somebody to help me enroll people. I need some marketing support. I need all these things. And we'd never done that. And so at the end of last year, we built a system that made it online and the support built in. And I think God was protecting us, because that has just blown up. And it's the only thing we could do. Our business is better this year than it was last year.
Wow.
And we can't do classroom training. And you know why? It's because we listened to what our people were telling us. It's funny what happens when you just start listening to what your people say. And so that's what I'm really excited about. I'm just watching this thing. And, I know the content's good, and I know it works, and we have all the results, and I know that, but it's just reaching so many more people at a different level. So that's probably what I would say is my, what I'm most proud of, that I finally got out of my own way and just delivered what people wanted.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know a lot of people, make the mistake of selling something that they think that the customer may want. Whereas actually, if you ask the question of what it is they do want or what they need, and then you build what they want or they need, well, then obviously you're going to become more successful, aren't you?
That's right.
Yeah, amazing. You've been phenomenal, hasn't he?
Unbelievable. Just made a load of stack of notes, loads of golden nuggets, and lots of tips here I've written down. So to study all them, and I'm sure the audience as well has done the same thing. But it's been a great pleasure and a great honor, and listening to you. And listen to some amazing stories that you shared today, and we could talk for another couple of hours easy, I know.
But we respect your time, and we respect, and we're really grateful for you coming on today. So thank you so much. And as I say, if you could email me your address, I would like to send you my book, Master Network.
You bet. Thanks, everyone. Be blessed.
Thank you, Tom.